Hey, boys and girls, we're going to learn about the number 12 today with an old book that's my daughter's favorite. It's called The 12 Dancing Princesses.
12 Dancing Princesses. Once upon a time, a king had 12 beautiful daughters. Each night, he locked and bolted their bedroom door. But each morning, when he unlocked the door, he saw that his daughters had danced holes in their shoes. No one in the kingdom could explain it. So the king said, "Anyone who can discover the secret in 3 nights can choose one of my daughters for a wife. In addition, he will rule my kingdom after I die. But anyone who tries and fails will lose his head." Before long, a prince offered to try his luck. He was welcomed and treated royally. That night, he was led to the bedroom next to the one the princesses all shared. The doors were left open so he might see where they went. But he grew weary and fell fast asleep. When he awakened, it was morning, and the princesses had danced their shoes to pieces. On the second night, the same thing happened, and then again on the third. So the prince lost his head. Many others tried to discover the secret of the 12 dancing princesses, but everyone who tried failed. Now it came to pass that a poor soldier had suffered a wound and could not serve in the army any more. He came upon an old woman who asked him where he was going. "I really don't know," he replied. Then he added jokingly, "Perhaps I will find out where the princesses dance holes in their shoes." "That is not very hard to do," said the old woman. "You must not drink the wine they will bring you each night, and you must pretend to fall into a deep sleep." Then she handed him a cloak and said, "This cloak will make you invisible, so you can follow the 12 princesses." So the poor soldier went and offered his services to the king. He was treated just like the others. That night, the eldest princess brought him a cup of wine, but he had fastened a sponge under his chin, and instead of drinking the wine, he let it dribble down his chin into the sponge. Then he lay down and began to snore loudly, as if he were sleeping. The 12 princesses heard him and laughed gleefully. Then they opened their closets, brought out beautiful gowns, and dressed themselves before the mirror. They whirled about, admiring themselves and eagerly looking forward to the ball. But the youngest princess said, "Rejoice if you will, but I have a strange feeling that misfortune will visit us tonight." "What a silly goose you are," replied the eldest. "Have you forgotten how many princes have come here in vain? This poor soldier will fare no better than the rest. Why, even without a sleeping potion, he would have slept until morning." Then she went to her bed and tapped upon the bedpost. At once, the bed sank into the floor, revealing a long staircase. One after another, the 12 princesses went down the stairs. Quickly, the soldier jumped from his bed He drew on his cloak, which made him invisible, and followed them down the stairs. As he walked behind the youngest princess, he carelessly stepped on her gown. "Wait!" cried the princess. "Someone is stepping on my dress." "Nonsense," said the eldest. "You probably caught it on a nail." They continued down until they were far underground. Then they came to an avenue that was lined with trees that had silver leaves. The soldier reached out and broke off a twig to keep as a token. But the youngest princess heard the snapping noise and became alarmed. "Did you hear that?" she cried. "All is not well." "Don't be silly," replied the eldest. "It must have been a gun that was fired to salute us." So they continued on, passing trees of gold and then trees of diamonds. The soldier broke off 2 more twigs, and with each snapping sound, the youngest princess became alarmed. But each time, the eldest said that it was only a gun being fired in their honor. Soon, they arrived at a great lake where 12 handsome princes were waiting with 12 little boats. The princesses seated themselves, and the soldier sat down in the boat with the youngest. The prince who was rowing it said, "I don't know why, but this boat seems much heavier tonight. I must row with all my strength just to move it across the lake." And the youngest princess said, "How strange. Perhaps it is the weather, for I feel very warm this evening too." On the opposite shore of the lake was a magnificent castle. From it came the glow of bright lights, and the sound of trumpets and drums drifted down to the lake. The princes rowed across to the castle and led the 12 princesses inside. When they danced, the soldier danced too, but no one could see him. When one of the princesses raised her cup, the soldier drank what was in it. This upset the youngest princess, but the eldest silenced her as usual. By 3 o'clock, they had danced so much that they had worn holes in their shoes. Then they were rowed back across the lake, and the soldier sat in the boat with the eldest. The princesses said good night to the princes and promised to come back to the ball the following night. As soon as they reached the steps, the soldier scrambled upstairs, took off his cloak, and lay down in his bed. As the princesses wearily reached the top of the stairs, they heard him snoring loudly. "Our secret is still safe as far as he is concerned," they said. Then they hung up their gowns, placed their worn-out shoes under their beds, and went to sleep. The soldier did not tell the king what he had seen. Instead, he went with the princesses a second and a third time. Everything was exactly the same, except that on the third night, he brought back a wine goblet as a token. After the 3 nights had passed, it was time for the soldier to give his report to the king. He took with him the twigs and the goblet. The 12 princesses hid behind a door, near enough to hear every word. The king spoke first. "Have you found out where my daughters go when they dance holes in their shoes?" he asked. And the soldier replied, "They go to an underground castle where they danced with 12 princes. Then the soldier told the king about everything he had seen. Finally, he took out the tokens which proved that he was telling the truth. The king called his daughters before him. They knew that lying would do them no good, so they admitted everything. Then the king asked the soldier which of the princesses he would choose for a wife. And the soldier answered, "I am not as young as I used to be. Therefore, I will choose the eldest." And so the soldier married the princess, and the kingdom was promised to him upon the king's death.